Breaking news. Sounds like we may have new threats against the crickets, as somebody likes to laser mice minds to make them vicious. So they like to attack crickets and everything else, like bottle caps and wood chips. Folks, it's getting weird. But we all have to step up and do something here. We can't just watch this nonsense come on us. So all you crickets, keep it up. Maybe the mouse will get you. The laser-adjusted mouse will get you before that boot. And so I'm here again, trying to at least expose certain things and get you all to do something. Whatever. I don't really think it matters. Just get involved. And I think things will be guided. You'll be guided into where you need to go. And I think if you do it, we kind of went at things like in an old mind that we thought if we just went and talked to somebody that reason would prevail immediately and we'd be moving on. And so we found out that didn't work. And then, for someone like myself, found out there's an actual invasion that's happened, an actual plan afoot. There's an actual thing that's going on that is identifiable. It's a plan. It's what can I say? I don't even know. It's just sitting there working against us. And then also that's the one that's obvious is working against us is the plan. Then we had one that's already been executed. And it took the whole normal establishment, the de jure establishment, and just threw it out. It supplanted it, folks. It literally says this in the codes if you know what you're looking for. You live in a supplanted existence. And so that seems to have quieted everybody down. They can't quite figure out what this thing is. And when they go to it, it beats them down, and they say, well, there's nothing we can do with it. And I can't say that we've fixed the beaten down, but what it seems to be more is the problem is where there needs to be more of us to resist the beatdown. Like any slave master might. These people have to have the whip taken from them, and they need to be handled. And I would like to see us do it in a better way so that we do give, whether they really deserve it or not, give them justice. And then we hang them. So in my mind, as I look at all this, we have an inverted view, and we tend to do the wrong, we'd make the wrong decisions based on this inverted, this obstructed, occulted view of what really is supposed to be going on. Before I go too far, like I did last week, I believe this is going to be BTWRLM 206. For those of you on podcast or pastcast, BTWRLM 206. And so we can keep track. You should be able to put those in a search engine with Behind Woodshed and find the content page, the blogcaster that I'll put up in a couple of hours, 4 hours or so. So yes, a long time Behind Woodshed is spent to come here and produce the information that then should become knowledge to you because you've set it up and made it real for you and worked with it and intended to work with it. Somebody asked me, well, what's this in this evolutionary engagement you talk about? I think there was a Twitter, and I'm Behind a Woodshed if you want to follow or tell me something or whatever. Another place to find me. What is this evolutionary engagement? And I just said, well, it all depends on what wrong you decided to make right. She goes, where's the information on this? So people are 3 steps behind. We're beyond the information, folks. We're beyond even knowledge. We're into having to already be at the point of taking that knowledge and applying it. And as I look out, I see lots of people, and this is not a judgment on your character at all, that you're out there swinging and fighting and resisting. You're just you're struggling in Chinese finger cuffs is what you're doing. This is no character assassination on everybody. I have a funny feeling that maybe people feel that it is. This is Behind the Woodshed, so you got to kind of take a little bit of the lumps a bit if you're going to keep having to come back here, which is nowhere. It's all in our mind and our responsibilities and principles we were supposed to hold. We abandoned most all of it. Except there's something in us that don't like to be oppressed. And that's the only thing I can see we have left. And I want to get to something, and I'm not going to do, again, I've been really avoiding a lot of this. I don't want to get into the discussion until we can get a good foundation to be discussing it. But I have an example of something that I've been really noticing I think people have a real misunderstanding about. And it has nothing to do with anyone and their character. I think it's all driven by that, but here's how this works. Here's how the inverted view, I think I found at least one example here that I can explain. Here's how the inverted view will cause you to take on a status in your resistance or your rejection and call yourself something when in fact, when you go to do the act that you think was in rejection of the system, you're actually fulfilling what you were supposed to do within a society recognizing the law and accountability and all this kind of stuff, while claiming that you're not, that you're rejecting it. A little story came through, and this is totally different off the cuff here. Didn't really think about it till this morning, so I really got to get back to that. It wasn't even part of my tabs last night. Just a report, and I'm just going to say it. You can fight with me or argue with me in your mind or on your keyboard all you want. Here's how this thing works down, and I hope you understand the dynamic, and it might maybe make a principled review for you to say, okay, well, if I look at my life's equation, that calculus that the courts and the governments tell us that they figure on all the time, this legal calculus, the lawful calculus in this process, and I have an equation that's got a negative or a wrong, or I'm sitting on the wrong side of a divisor, and I do the wrong multiple, I'm going to get the wrong answer. I'm going to get common core answers on all this. So, what seemed to be the epitome of this point was a little story that came out here, I think it was this last week. It says, masked anarchist workers repair potholes in Portland. Okay, I'm pausing. Think about this, folks, when I'm reading. Masked anarchist workers repair potholes in Portland. The group has a Facebook page that shows masked workers repairing potholes in southeast Portland. The anarchists say state neglect has caused the streets to fall into disrepair, and it's up to the residents to fix them. Another portion here is part of the story from AP, and they're essentially the message that they're putting out is that the anarchists are for what they say, we believe in community-oriented direct action. This is now bringing up the UN direct democracy, but listen beyond that. These are also misunderstood by people, what they're now trying to use in order to go against this oppression that they know is there, that they see. First of all, let's go back, and they claim that the state has neglected the streets. Folks, the state is not responsible for the streets. So we have a misunderstanding of the normal establishment as well, that they're resisting against, but they want to take direct action. So they go out and they start fixing the potholes of the city streets and then call that anarchy. I hope some of you that have listened to me about land disposal law are already on the point of this. If you're not, you really have to understand what I'm trying to tell you here behind the woodshed to give you these real fundamental principles of where we come from, that we can't throw a lot of this out. The very fact of them fixing the potholes, folks, is not anarchy. It's not an organized rejection of society. In fact, the streets weren't anybody's to fix except for those that would step up to do so. What they're doing to fix the asphalt potholes in the street fulfills the law for the establishment of those streets. The underlying foundation of land disposal about those streets is fulfilled by the society they're claiming to reject, that they are actually not in rejection of when they start filling those potholes. Now, I commend them for doing that. But miners do this all the time. No one understands this. Miners go out and co-owner of the mine and I myself will go out. There's a lot of work goes on in keeping the roads cleared up. No one pays us to do this. We aren't anarchists, and we don't make a big Facebook page to do this. It goes on year after year. Thousands and thousands of dollars get spent for what everyone else might think, oh, that those claims are for free. They're not. And yet all we're doing is fulfilling the law and maintaining those roads without government. The private property possessors do that for their purposes, and the other people that go out and use the roads that were constructed through where, folks? I tell you, 1866 Act Section 8, isn't it? When you go out and maintain the roads, you are not an anarchist. You are not an organized rejection of the society with which you're rejecting, openly rejecting. In this case, you're fulfilling the underlying law. So I want to bring it to you again. Hopefully this example does it. What you're looking for is adherence to the fundamental law that got us here, not a rejection of it. And as long as you think you're rejecting it, and these are the first actions taken in actually direct action on the ground, not political action, folks. This is the other point. The anarchists tend to do political actions. What they're doing, repairing the road, is actual foundational work that needed to be done. It's called work. Road work in maintenance. Now, there's been an extension. Governments have taken on a mass of people in a place called a county or a city have taken on the obligation and duty to maintain the roads. So it's not the state, it's really the local. And the local has failed. That's a fiduciary breach, however their excuse is. And we can find all the reasons why. It goes back to this agenda that wants those potholes to be that way because they want you on the bikes and they want you on those trams. But to call yourself an anarchist, and it's not about doing the work, it's about what they're doing that shows me this proof. That call yourself an anarchist and then go and fill a pothole is fulfilling the society that you have, not in a rejection to it. I commend that. If I can sound bizarre on this, and maybe I do, maybe I don't. I commend, that's not anarchy, folks. It's doing what we all should be doing. Now, they're having to do it in a very special way. They shouldn't actually have to do it, where a municipality or a city has taken on the obligation and duty. But they're doing it anyway. It's starting to happen, folks. People are starting to see this, but they make it a big deal. This is what we were supposed to do all the time. Miners do this all the time. I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say. It's just not, it's so normal. I was surprised to even hear this even here, but for me, it makes a different point for you. I hope you understand what I'm talking about when I'm really in rejection of this term anarchy and watch people fighting for what really is accountability to the foundation of why we were here. I mean, I'm talking the political side of this, that established, as we are conceived, if we can, or get back to those documents before any constitution that said that governments were in place to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as we know as property. Highways are a property. Remember that term I used a long time ago. I don't use it a lot. People think I'm cussing. I'm not. It's a use of fruct. It's a property owned, if they call common community here, it's a property owned in common, but it's not the commons that they talk about today. It's a use of fruct. It's a non-exclusive use over a particular land for everyone. And along with that comes some just general rules like you don't block or obstruct it. You don't mess it up. Now, there's no imposition of maintenance. So for those of us that have to go out and use these roads, we keep them in repair because we need to do what we're going to do. We're not just slovenly. We go out and destroyers. We have to go out and make our life as efficient and what can I say? Well, just efficient and easy as we can make it for ourselves. Why would we want to work harder than that? It's tough enough. So I just wanted to point out an example of how we get it wrong. I commend these people. I mean, really, you may want to think that I'm condemning anarchy. I'm not. I just want it to be understood properly because I think by what we do and the walking wounded have created this condition against us, and we condemned all of the establishment, and in fact, you didn't actually want to do that, and you didn't know that, or if you did, you didn't think about it. And I'm asking us to slow down and think about this stuff. And what's the reason why they're out there doing this can be found not just in fiscal mismanagement. It has to do with the political pressures that I talk to you about all the time that happen to have to do with, like, it doesn't look like it, but I'll just put it in the term sustainable development. It's this foreign imposition. It's these transportation plans, these modal transport. They want you on bikes. And they just found out in Seattle that didn't work. Everyone rode the bike downhill and didn't go ride it uphill. Oh, that wasn't too hard to figure out. There's a reality that the insane don't look at. They want you on these trams. They want you in these things that they can control and minimize and rewild even the urban areas. This urban-rural divide is a fabricated construct. So that whenever you see the failure, you start to find out that there's a plan behind it for why that's a failure. This is a state neglect, and only but a different proposition on the state neglect. This is where the states are actively planning to subvert you by other ways. So there's a misunderstanding on how the organization of the government that they're relaying against, if they are anarchists, is, which could obviously cause a problem. And then they go out and do something that isn't actually against the society that they would claim to be rejecting. They're actually fulfilling the society that they want, and that's not a rejection of that society. And that's what I'm telling you. If we get past the covert, the occulting of all this, the occupation over us, they are doing what the law says a rightful running society must do. And I needed to, I guess, say that. I don't know what else to say. I don't have many examples. A lot of people get lost and stuck in their own wrong definitions and wrong applications. And that's all I can say. I mean, it's not a judgment at all. It's just what's happening. It's just the truth of what's happening, whether you want to agree with that or not. I can clearly see this is one of the problems. And this is not a problem. This is actually, I guess this is an object lesson. Understand what you're dealing with and understand you're still doing it right. You're just describing it wrong and sending the wrong message. And what you want to do is exactly what you're doing to show up the corruption that's happened, that needed to be arrested, that we are told it was up to us to do it. This is just the start. You start going potholes, you also then have to go downtown. So I say, why am I having to do that? And start pressing them on their fiscal side. And why are you making these decisions that make the roads this way? What about this transportation plan and these smart cities things and all these other security issues you put in and let the infrastructure fail? Or privatize it so it goes in disrepute or costs extra money? And it's not just the roads, it's everything that you need for. I talk about the water all the time. I told you this water problem is going to go around the country. It's not just Flint. And you see, I don't have to say it more. You know where it's all gone. It's everywhere. These are all they're attacking you. You're under attack whether you know it, and it's being done in slow incremental ways, and you think it's all normal to the point that some young studs get up to run their jackhammers by hand and tamp down the asphalt in the potholes, thinking that's anarchy. No, you just exampled the existence that was supposed to be maintained by us, that we're allowing to sit back and take us down. I don't know. I want to keep talking to this. I don't know if there's any reason. At some point you get what I just said or don't. And if you have a fight with me, you need to study some more, is all I can tell you. And I think when you come from a solid foundation, not the wounded, but come from the solid foundation, you're going to start to see what I've been telling you. I'm really not talking in questions. And we're going to find out someone's correcting me. I'm going to get to a correction I'm going to make. But the point is that any corrections are so small, and it's really not the correction makes it wrong. It just makes a better focused response. That's when you know you're on pretty much on target. If I don't even hit the bullseye, I'm always hitting the target for the most part. I have done it for years and years now. No one, very few come back with any substantial thing that doesn't have an adjustment to make that we continue to move. And all we're going to do, we're moving back to the future. We're moving back to where we should have been. As I tell you, what do I say this, the term, the relation back doctrine. We're relating our power that was handed to us as acknowledged in people. And we're bringing it forward again when it was obscured and run down by a bunch of usurping, occupying invaders, as we referenced last week. And I think I saw a thing go right through the chat room line on RLM, something about settlement. That's, I think Vince, if I caught that real quick. Absolutely, these laws, these foundational land disposal laws brought settlement, and that meant peace, and I dig all that argument about why you have your sheriff that keeps the peace. See, this is not keeping the peace, that someone has to come out and do what was promised to be undertaken by a municipality. That's not peaceful. That's not letting those two people in the pictures go do what they want to do. Even if this is a publicity stunt, it still points to a problem that ought not have been. Now, so the anarchists will use, or the so-called people that use the term statists, which I've brought up behind the woodshed a few times about being such a narrow statement of ignorance. I don't understand. What about the rest of the governments? It doesn't mean all governments. It just means one, or a style of one that's pretty narrow. Where's the roads going to come from? Folks, they came from us. Remember, let's see, JeffersonMiningDistrict.com, go to the Highways and Trails document. It's a 4-page document. Look right in the beginning of that. It says that the roads, the area that was taken and claimed in construction of the roads were a pre-existing claim of possession by the people. Let me say that again carefully here for you. Listen. It said the land that's disposed to the highway is a pre-existing claim of possession by the people. You have to understand how powerful that is and how stable and how land-based this country is. It's a pre-existing possession. Pre-existing to what? Pre-existing to even the government. This is why the right to use the road is so powerful in there, and why the occupiers don't want you to know that. As a pre-existing claim of possession, who has a right to deny but a criminal trying to steal your property? What can I tell you, folks? It's pretty simple. I don't know what else to do. I mean, that should end it right there. And so anybody that would obstruct you is, as I can tell you, and I had to read more research. I say we, but it's a lot of my own, just trudging through with black and white. That we have to do these things because they're the law, and we have to keep it. And these people that are invading us under the color of official authority are essentially, well, they're felons. They're felons in the commission of the act to deny you, and they're felons for omitting to do the right thing, to do the law. How much harder is it to lay out a complaint anywhere, whether or not it's listened to by the very same people that have set up the system that occupy? That's only proof of what I'm saying, that the occupation exists, and that we were supposed to keep us better. And these so-called anarchists, you can't call them statists because, see, that status has to do with a very narrow type of government. This is the way we get our land disposal is from that republic. That Republican form of representative government, that where we get to land is represented in the records and the law and the courts that reflect the law and as the evidence to give us remedy for violation to property. This is not commerce. This is not politics. And these kids, I'll call them kids, are sitting perfectly in the non-commercial point to walk out there and tamp their asphalt into the holes. It is an indictment against the system, but what should they do? Should they continue tamping, or should they then get all those organizers, the anarchy, the anons, what are they called? Anonymous? Why aren't they just stepping out now, going in? I said invade the city system, invade the county system. Don't attack them. Show them the law that I explained to you is there to show them and say, you had an obligation and duty, fulfill it or get the heck out or resign. I mean, instead of making me go down and get do all the work to get you out by official, you just resign. And if you don't do your obligation and duty, I'm going to put the county under some strain. I'm going to do another lawsuit. Why can't you just lay out the facts of that lawsuit, make a complaint? I'm just wondering, as I think about this stuff, I wonder why do people don't do it just as a joke? I mean, if they thought it was a joke, take the small claims, give the city a bill for doing that. And then take the city manager to the small claims court privately for not fulfilling his obligations and duties. Just see where that goes. It's only $50, $60, $70 to do that. If you're poor, you can do it in a form of pauperous. You don't even have to pay that. And you don't use you use the underlying right under the law. Let's see, Portland, Oregon. That's ORS 368. ORS 368, go to 131, and 131 says the underlying right from the United States grant cannot be usurped. So they can't even say you don't have standing. What you do then, you have a contract that the government has agreed to do the maintenance, and now they've breached the contract to your use. You have to put yourself in the right to use it. But it's not hard. That's it. What? 2 sentences to 2 points on a petition. But send them a bill. And then sue them in small claims court. They can't have an attorney there. What if it goes into circuit court? Who cares? Move it on. And move it on to the federal then as a violation of the grant. Move it on into make a federal issue out of it. Is this that hard? I don't think so. It's only hard if you haven't really been gearing up and reading the things and the places I've been telling you to read. And I mean even down to if you only had 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. If you've been here listening to me for all these years and just spent 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, make it a small job. You would have, well, way more knowledge than I would need to tell you anymore. I wouldn't be getting the resistance. I wouldn't be getting the embarrassment. I wouldn't be getting the rejection. I wouldn't be getting people that are feeling that I'm just someone that can't be moved up against because I've really got quite a bit of knowledge in this small area. That maybe I embarrass them, and I don't intend to embarrass anybody. I'm thrilled when I hear people moving in the right direction on the objective basis. It's not about identifying, vilifying anybody, all the wrongs. I'm trying to get people to run in the right direction, and there's a right direction to run. And until someone can tell me how that right direction is not right, I've got to continue running it because that's what my study is, and I'm here to allow you to use what I know or found, at least by me telling you where to go look for yourself, so you know, and you've done your own due diligence. There's no replacement for that. In fact, I'm going to get way off here. I need to say something here that just occurred to me. I'm so far off anyway, maybe I'll just go there and then come back. I noticed in the chat of UCY.TV, last night when I came in, just happened to jump in as I'm preparing for the broadcast. There was a discussion that Ron Stephan apparently has a broadcast there on Saturday night, and Jules was in the discussion too on the chat. And there was an exposure that the courts, the states are using mental health against people to put them in mental, the insane asylums that don't exist. To effectively control you and control dissent. I've told you about that before. I wanted to rediscuss that because this is another thing about the remedy. What do you do against that? That's a real difficult one. I've told you they used to do that to, like, a couple of my friends got put on mental holds just for fighting the system based on the not quite as complex or basic as I can tell you here today. We didn't understand stuff then like I do today, but even within the law. It wasn't nuts. It was right within the law. They just didn't want to have to face it. But they used to put, I've had a couple of my friends put on mental holds where they put you in the cell and they hold you and then some psychologist or psychiatrist, whoever it is, comes to talk to you. And then they just do it for a couple of days and they kick you out. The psychiatrist comes back and says you're fine. Because they know. It's a tactic. Well, at the time this would happen, I told you that it would happen. They were talking in the chat that it's going to be coming in the future. Well, it's been happening. In fact, Ron Stephan had a talk with someone that he knew that it happened too. This is not unknown, and a bunch of links went in the chat to show. I think that these psychology or psychiatric measures are being taken to solidify that power in the people that are in the government to do so. These are just what they're doing, folks. They've gotten it down. It's been a long-term thing that they knew to use, and they have been using it. So I just wanted to touch base here, and it's a generality. I can't do specifics because you don't know until you get involved. How we started to combat that was a couple of things. And what I've told you before to read about habeas corpus, I don't just talk, folks. I meant you need to go find out how a habeas corpus is done and pretend that you have a friend in jail, you want to get out with one, and write the habeas to get them out, even on a fictitious point. When you read a little bit more, you'll start knowing how to write that in a generic sense. And you write it out, and you get them, and you leave yourself some lines so you can make specificity, and then you have your friends sign it. Especially any of your friends that are out there in the face of the government, you have to have them sign one of these. Now, the reason why is because even though under habeas corpus, you, as not the one that's arrested, have the right to submit a habeas corpus. Even if you've heard they don't work, folks, just do work up and do what I'm saying. They will reject your signature on a habeas corpus they cannot reject the one that has a signature already made up on the one who is in holding. That's a problem in the law that's being violated. I'll get to that in a second. So you have your friend, you write up a habeas, and the best way to do it, I even told you this story. I went to an attorney, a lawyer. I can't call him attorney. He was a lawyer who was a good guy. He ended up couldn't stay in the system because he saw the corruption. He asked me to come into his office one day, and I told you this story. I won't do it again, just to reference it. And he explained to me how you take the statutes and you go line by line and you do what the statutes tell you, because if you don't, the judge uses that as an excuse to not look at it. But when you go line by line and fulfill everything in the code underneath your state's habeas corpus provisions, or you go look at case law to see what they talked about, but go by the statute. The statute is that's the book that the judge is liable to. Once you do that way and submit it, that's when it starts to work. So what we've learned is before you have someone that might be on the front end of the spear in the government's face that may be arrested, have the habeas, they sign it. Even though you're supposed to do it, when you see a wrong arrest, you have the right to. So the first line of defense is to write the habeas and have them sign it, and then you keep it, someone keeps it where they can get a hold of it, and you file that into the court whenever they get arrested wrongly. Only works if it's wrong, and you better just don't waste the bullet if it's not. Now, so that's the general thing. So what happens if you don't have one of those? Then you write one up, and you sign it, and they reject it, and then you take it to the federal system. So you have to know how to do the federal side. Only this time you bring in the people that are holding him, which is the judge who's holding it, who made the dismissal because of your signature, the clerk, and the one who's holding them. In this case, it would be whoever the receiving agent is, the receiving party in the asylum. It might be the jailer still. They may not move it. But you name them all as a conspiracy to deprive his rights or her rights. And you move it in as a federal action as well. So now you have the habeas and a federal deprivation of rights suit. And you charge the judge with collusion and fraud upon the court for fabricating, using the color of authority of a mental hold to deprive him of his rights and his liberty, so-called. It's habeas is a improper restraint of liberty. And so I'm just going to go through a lot quick here. You understand that the snowball is what you're building here. As they roll it down the hill, you go ahead and make sure they're stuck to it. And anybody who gets in the way of that, you bring it and you quickly escalate the action in court. You're already in court, but when they bring you into a jail, you're already in a court somewhere. Well, unless they figure they better throw you back out. What happened in my case, the lawyer told me how to do it. I rewrote what I submitted 3 times before. The only change was I went right through the statutes the way it was supposed to be done in order. We submitted that. It didn't have my friend's signature on it. 2 o'clock that next morning, he was out. Why? Because they don't want to have to address that habeas. And if the one that's arrested is in, they don't have to answer. It moots the petition. Now, if that happens on a mental hold, they may throw the mental patient out. That's a double problem now, because then they would have released him, not only proved it was a pretext, as I tell you, it's a pretext to deprive him of his remedies and rights and property, but then that shows that he really wasn't a danger to society to begin with, which is what you're looking to prove anyway. And so you're making a much more solid record than what I see normal people doing, as this more prevalent threat where we are no longer going to be able to defend ourselves against mental holds because they've made this psychiatric thing, and that's a whole other element of the proof you can bring. This is all fabricated decisions that are made by private entities that are used in collusion with the state to deprive rights. All major crimes, folks, underneath. You go look at federal law. And you bring these at the federal level as also. You might even want to pull out a takings claim. I don't know. It depends on how integrated you have. That's why you would like to have more people involved. Yes, there's a lot of things here that they do, but this is where it's gone now. Because they've made these psychiatric decisions that have no basis, but they also have no limit. And they use them as a pretext to put you away if you dissent. And that's why I've been working so hard to make sure that people have the law to present so they can't be looked that way. That seems to be one of the mitigating factors. Nobody that I know that works with me ever goes anywhere without the nice, solid, compact law to show that it is not a mental issue. Well, besides the fact that I'll throw tools on you, I do them periodically to show that the remedies that we have to start challenging all of this. Now, I just said a whole lot of stuff that means nothing to nobody that's not going to go do what I've said or be prepared. And they've got it so subtle that unless you're someone sticking your neck out, which actually you shouldn't be doing, but because there's other ways to go at it. But if you are, and you're not prepared for this, then you're going to become an example of how not to do it, and that's when that's all the prairie dogs see. Oh, Alice is gone, or Fred's gone. You got taken out pretty quick. Instead, these people should be seeing the shadow come, all your friends, and should get together and start doing what needs to be done to protect the one that got pulled out, is the target for being pulled out of, pulled off the prairie dog mound. Now, my experience was when we had that all set up, it failed, so that's not a foolproof way. So that means that each one of you have to know about this habeas, and each one of you have to write that. You at least have someone on the outside that knows you're there that can at least file letters, that should know how to write letters someplace that look like habeases, because that's all they have to do. They don't have to be so quite formalized. They just have to make the question. So what are you doing? Well, if they find out that eventually they're going to let you out, eventually, you have all this record that you've done on the outside that they may have deprived you from doing, that you also show that was again, how they destroy people. See, I see nobody just making evidence on how this gets done, and so they have no place to go, even if the courts weren't corrupt. And so, I've just said a whole lot of stuff that a lot of people don't understand, probably you're listening to me, and it's interesting, but you're probably not going to take the next step of doing, and that's what's hurting us. My contribution is really want everybody to do better. I guess that's one thing I've been wanting to. That's all that's in my mind. When I hear someone that doesn't quite have the answer quite right, or is relying on an inferior foundation, all I want to do is inform you of where the foundation can be found and let you be more fortified. It happened the other night here at the mining district. I was listening to a gentleman talk about what he'd done, and I said, I said, what's your foundation? I mean, what is your study for that? And he really didn't have a study. He was just kind of going through the motions based on what he found on the internet from a long time, or not the internet, but from information that was passed a long time ago. And I said, well, I did some deeper study on that, and you might want to go find what you're doing is found over in this section of the law already. And if you follow that, you'll be more fortified in what you're proceeding against. Because then they know what you'll know what you're talking about, and they'll know that what you're talking about, because your paper will be consistent with what they go and read. In other words, you're fortifying your position not by your opinion, but what already exists to protect you, notwithstanding the occupiers and usurpers in those positions of decision. That, to me, just gets them more involved. It's easier for you to get them into the crimes. It's really that fast. And so I went way off. I started with the potholes and the anarchists that don't know that, and they don't even know the structure of their government or the financial and fiscal obligations and duties. And this is where we start. We fell off the cart already. If there was a cart we were supposed to be on, and then I saw the chat. We talked about mental health holds. They've been going on forever. I didn't know anything about it until I stepped into a court, and then you start finding out the threats that you have to now navigate in these admiralty things. And so I started navigating, folks. That's all we're doing. We're learning what the black and white says to navigate those problems. They're not silver bullets. And then I realized that, well, the best we're doing is we're making a record until enough people, because we can't do it each one on our own, until enough people have seen enough, and really it ends up being really mob rule. They just give it up and they just tear through stuff, and then it's over. It gets changed. The conflagration, the political conflagration happens, and then we look at the new day. And I'm hoping that we look at the new day with the better insight, and we come back to that settlement that these so-called anarchists are attempting to bring back. A peaceful ride on the road. Not the one where the bureaucrats have allowed it. Not where the fiscal plunderers have allowed it. So now I'm going to probably get to my tabs here. Go off where I was going to start. So how far off I was here the last, 45 minutes. Now where I was going to start. Oh, man. What we have to talk about and instead of just enjoying the wonders of what we could be doing. It's amazing to me. Windows 10 is bringing fecal ads. Well, he says to use another word, but I didn't want to use it. Ads to File Explorer. Here's how to turn them off. Windows 10 is malware, folks, and we're not getting away with it. You don't have Windows 10. You're not working in a new computer with a new computer unless you have big data sponges and big data surveillance tools. And you're going to have to, if you want to continue to do it, not throw your hands up and be part of the solution and not the continuing problem of the big data imposition, which they will use in their psychiatric holds, as we've been hearing together, over many months. Again, I can't believe it. Silent weapons for quiet wars, folks. This is what it's about. You just got to go back and get that. So Windows 10, here's written by a gentleman on Cryptagon. I think his name might be Kevin, and I thank him for doing what he does and spreads the word. So this is what he has a little rant going. I'll read just a little bit of it, but the point is that he's just explaining over the years, secretly, your systems over decades have been in the works to be the surveillance system, the Internet of Things against you, and that will be used to serve you in the future. It's just incredible how grim Windows is getting. Linux still terrible on desktops, and Apple has abandoned Mac OS to embrace their primary role as a mobile phone company. Did you understand that, folks? They're going to go back just to phones, forget this operating system stuff. Even people who stuck with Apple through the near collapse in 1990s, that's when I ditched Apple, are now throwing in the towel. And now, with Windows 10, you get ads in the file system, and you can't use the latest chips with older versions of the Windows if you want to receive updates. Well, the system is a big surveillance malware anyway. Just want to let you know, those are, as we go into this future Internet of Things, they're not going to make it easy to be connected and not surveilled, and I think that's important to understand. Even if, because even if we are, we have to be careful on what we let out, what we don't. Why? Is because what's coming up and what they're doing. Again, the Internet's not a private place, and everything you do there can be used in the Internet of Things, big data, to do psychological testing, to do psychological holds, to condition your spending, what you'll use to spend, condition on eventually your Internet of Things controls the heat in your room and what you look at and what you watch and how long you cook your toast and all that stuff. The technocrats love. They just can't leave you alone. So the anarchists are not rebelling against the roads when they're fixing them. They're rebelling against this imposition that they're actually not fighting. And I see the question. I didn't want to address it. I'd like to know, too, about the Grimner says, Linux terrible on desktops. Who is this guy? Well, he's a Cryptagon.com guy, and I don't know. I wish people would tell me, because I'm so far out of it. I'd like to know why Linux is not good on desktops. I mean, we understand that Linux has some things it can't do, I suppose, because of the open source, but I don't know how bad it is. I've been using it on one system. I've been using it for, 6 years now? It's been perfectly fine for me. So I don't know what his problem is, and that's what my question. But I'm not here to get into this opinion on stuff about whether it's right or wrong. I'm saying, I would say use Linux. You'll find that it works fine enough. And you're going to be stuck with it anyway. So that or nothing, or that or any other thing. And I'll say otherwise, I understand that the final, some old vulnerabilities in Linux were patched to whatever level that they can patch them that used to be there. So it's a little bit more, apparently a little bit more seaworthy now. But getting over into technology and what they're doing and data collection and how simple it's going to be and how fast and how cool, but how scary at one level. Sony files to patent new contact lenses that record video, store it, play it back, and adjust zoom, focus, and aperture automatically. Just fascinating technology. But first thing my thought was, so every government agent will be wearing one. It'll be part of the cop's uniform, which I think would probably be a good thing at one level. But, there's no system to bring remedy for any harm done. But this is that big data thing. There's not going to be anywhere that you're not going to be tied in. This is Google Glass to the next level, folks, because in this, you can actually apparently see games through, you look at your video games through your contacts as well. It's smart enough, if you will, smart enough to read the blink rate in your eyes so that you can manage what it does by your blinking. So I won't get into it, just a fantastic technology. But this is going to be, you're not going to be able to even know that you're looking at someone that's collecting your data. You know they're going to have facial recognition. It'll be tied into the big grid. Next thing you know, SWAT team's bringing you down because they use some Google search to figure out that you were looking at the marathon bomb videos and you were looking for an rice cooker and a bag, a backpack. You think I'm kidding? For the first time, next story, police ask the entire city's Google searches, and the court says yes. Police ask now for a general warrant. This is a general warrant. This is supposed to be unlawful if you thought you were underneath a hierarchy, an establishment that hasn't been overtaken. That Google can be given NASA. They're saying they're fighting it all, but they're not. You know, they're wired behind, right? They get their money from NASA, NSA, CIA. Now the police can ask for your searches in an entire city and trace out whatever came into that. You may not even live in that city. If you looked at something in that city, you'll be tracked down. So so we'll be back to what I was telling you. You're now looking at someone who's dumber. IQ 80 minus, because the Supreme Court says you can be too smart to be a cop, who makes up fairy tales in their minds and maybe actually has a buck he wants to make because he's got an inside scoop on his business, his pot business, in his prostitution business, in his child services business. And so he sees, I can make some money on taking this guy's property and his car, because I got this search that says he looked at this, this, and this, and I'm going to make up something about him. He's the pedophile. He's the drug dealer. And I'm going to get a warrant based on this. I'm going to bust his door in, and I'm going to shoot him. Just so he can't prove he didn't do it. So Google searches can be, folks, if you didn't, why I oppose Google and anything else that's not at least somewhat anonymized, or use the anonymization features like start pages might be a good place to go. I also use DuckDuckGo. Why? Because start page doesn't quite get me what I'm looking for. That DuckDuckGo kind of fills in, and even both of those are kind of insufficient. But I have to do with what I got. But I do not like Google. In fact, I had a problem getting into RLM. I don't know why. I got another browser. It finally started to work on a different browser, but I couldn't get into the chat. I didn't want to get into the Google chat for the CAPTCHA. Because every time you go in, they know who you are and where you're signing up to go through Google's service to give you access to a website. Now, I did it last night because I had to see, I'm trying to troubleshoot the problem, but that's the limit of it. I now know that's exactly what that does. Now, that access can be searched out by a police warrant, a general warrant now. If you don't understand how far away we are from Constitution. Keep using Google things, folks. Keep using those Android phones that could still be rooted, right? Meaning that they have failures and vulnerabilities up the wazoo. Wazoo's not four letters, is it? Add an H. Maybe that'll make it extra. So moving on to the Internet of Things and your digitized big data world, DHS oversight says social media scanning probably is badly implemented, and agency doesn't even know if it works. Now, you may all burst out loud laughing, yeah, but look at what they say there. That means, is what I was telling you on the administrative side. There's evidence that they know what they're doing isn't even tested to work. Is an imposition beyond, as I told you, the standard for administrative agencies is they can only regulate to the limit that it accomplishes the objective they're there for. That these tests on social media can be used in a agency and addressment against your being interfered with in this way. As evidence against their processes that you can make a record of. So your big data is being tied together, your social work, and then they're going to tie all these psychological test things on their social media posts, and they have decisions that algorithms is making in order to tell you whether or not you should get ad money for your YouTubes, or whether or not you're conducive to censorship by whomever has you're using their service. That this now says social media scanning program that the government has is no good. I can't believe that it's any better than any of the other ones. They're probably all using the same one. It's usually how this works. This is from the Do Something, the algorithm department. These are proven now by their own admission, evidence against the agencies, and in how they'll just push out this stuff, and as long as you stay crickets, they win. Yeah, I hate doing it. My mind just flashed the DEA and how many of you filed your cannabis stuff. And what about that hemp association lawsuit? Did you look into that? Did you use that to attack? I mean, did anybody do anything since last week? Even begin it, did you? Thank you if you did, but please, I mean, don't get in arguments with people about all these things that we talk about normally in these liberty-minded people. If you haven't done anything, come on. We can talk until we're all blue in the face. But I thought this was fascinating, because what was even more important, and this is why you have to get into the Blogcaster, get the link if you haven't already typed it out to find where I'm reading. You need to read the stories, and I only put in the Blogcaster, I go through the stories and I put in certain parts that look like they'll tell the gist of the story, but I leave out a ton that may be more instructive, that I hope you're clicking on those links as well. Not for clickbait. I mean, I only have so much time to build the Blogcaster and go through it. I'm not in there just to process things. I just want to give you a direction, give you a little bit of starting, and then you go click the link and read more, because if you get to the bottom of this article, it starts talking about what these tests are all about. And I said, wow, how many people are missing it? I wonder if this guy, Jonathan Corbett, that I suggested, professional troublemaker last week, I wonder if he knows this. But they talk about what these tests are for. What do you think it's relevant to, folks, is the point. What are they looking? What are they screening over? Isn't it screening for so-called terrorists? Even though they've declared everybody an enemy combatant, are they actually supposed to be determining and screening you, who can show that you're not coming from the outside or subject to immigration? And if you read this report closely, well, you'll start to see this. One of the statements of the program that was started in April 2016, it says it too had the same lack of quantifiable results or stated goals. The quote from apparently a FOIA, because it's redacted, the applicants were asked to voluntarily give their social media usernames, USCIS, then screen the usernames against redacted using the redacted tool. USCIS also manually screened the username against the redacted, and USCIS assessed identifiable accounts to determine whether the refugees were linked to a derogatory social media information that could impact their eligibility for immigration benefits or admissibility into the United States. Now, do I even need to ask? I guess I will, just to make sure it gets stated. Are you a refugee underneath and asking for immigration benefits? That if you haven't been in the front of the line with your paper saying, what in the heck are you doing generally applying this, DHS? I do have a right to travel free, and you can't show that as applied to me, this program is even applicable. Is what I want you folks to start thinking about, doing and saying, and get before official records. Be the one that makes the question. How many cases have gone to, we've heard, finally somebody puts the process into play and makes the proper question. It's not a question, and shows that it was being wrongly done against us. Why? Because the Bar Association judges have said the government, the so-called sovereign, it's never been looked down until I've come along myself to look on as something with obligations and duties. It's been deemed to be a sovereign that has nothing but superior supreme power, because it reflects the people, which have been diminished, but no one notices that. I mean the people in the context of the men and women of the countryside. There, I got to conform myself to Ron's correct statements. Ron Steffens on UCY.tv. So the countryside is not represented in all this, and then they bring on and we find out it's for refugee. Are you a refugee, folks? Are you looking for immigration benefits? If you're not, how are any of these things applicable? How is DHS power over you relevant with regard to your right of freedom of travel? Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to go to some other country that may have all this, because that's not what we were talking about. But we're talking about this scrutiny that you allow because you don't challenge it. And I'm trying to show you week after week, right in the notice, is what they're telling us it's about, and crickets about, wait, no one stops to actually look closely and say, well, refugees? Well, I'm not a refugee. Why did I have to strip down and get my junk fluffed? One more piece of this puzzle, folks, it is really simple to expand on. If you go back, and I really wish I did this better. If I knew the totality of a subject matter, to just lay it out for you would be so much nicer, but I just don't have the mind anymore. I don't have the focus. I've got so much else going on, being run down in other ways, just so much to do, and no one else picking up parts of it. It's been very difficult to watch and then actually function through. I try to delegate myself. I try to delegate, but there's not really there to hand anything to, for one. And then you're always concerned, do they have enough knowledge? Not as a judgment because they're dumb. No, do you have enough of the knowledge? Do you have the black and white and the understanding of it in application? Not that it's not available. It's that if in a delegation, you hope that the next guy literally doesn't drop that baton for some simple little idea that didn't get understood. So accountability is what I really talk about. The evolutionary engagement is not really so evolutionary that I talk about. It's you, the evolutionary part is you standing up off the sludge you've been crawling around in, and stand up and start being responsible to your own existence, contrary to the parasites that have been feeding on you while you were stuck in that slime. This is the legal slime, and you've agreed to wallow in it. And I'm trying to show you right here in the it's not you saying it. This is not, remember, as I ever said, do not use your opinion. Go ahead and use their statements and identify from their confession, their admission to the limitation of their authority. Here's one more. So accountability is what we're looking at. You have to bring that accountability. Otherwise, a criminal, not a prisoner, you're the prisoner, the criminal, the nasty guard will get away with whatever he will get away with. Because you've allowed that relationship to happen, and you haven't said, wait a minute, I'm not the prisoner, actually. That's where you have me, and that's where you try to keep me. But it's only because I consent. I volunteer into it because I don't do the right thing I need to be doing. And whatever that, now how hard that is, I don't stand up and do that. I don't lift myself out of the slime that they've created for us in the stinking abyss and climb my way out, and hopefully helping others as we go. You don't have to, but I don't see why not. Once you know, why not? That's why I say I'm here to offer whatever I can. Not here to make someone look bad or sound bad or be bad. I want you to be good. I want you to be better than me. I mean, I've just got what I got. I see lots of brilliance out there. I wish it really shined in the right spots. Like we're all a bunch of brilliance that we just got wallowed in the mud, and all our brilliance is covered over by the mud that we allow over our light, and so we all look like dim bulbs. So accountability is up for us. You hope that your system works in its Republican form, even in a fascist, understood to be possibly fascist. Listen, if it's this way in Italy, and you're not getting it in America, how bad are you allowing it to be? That we can hear Italy's ex-intelligence chief is given a 10-year sentence for the role in a CIA kidnapping. That an intelligence chief was given a 10-year sentence because he had a fiduciary duty not to allow a crime in his town, his place, in his office. is not even enjoyed in the United States, and we were supposed to be the beacon for this accountability. Again, set off by the fact that the Italian intelligence chief was put in prison, the CIA done it. The United States done it. They're criminals, folks. This goes down to you. Not because you're the actor, it's because it reflects on you, and you were supposed to keep it in check. And we understand you can't do it individually. We were supposed to be the mass, as Thomas Jefferson would instruct us, the mass of educated people acting to be and being vigilant to maintain the so-called liberty, the freedom, so-called freedom that we have. See, all these words are kind of conditioned because of what they really are. Like anarchists don't understand they're not anarchists. It's all inverted. So I have to speak at some point in the street language because that's all you actually understand. And when you start seeing different, you realize, oh, wow, you start making the corrections for me, and that's fine. I don't need to do it anymore. So Italy now has accountability that when one of their people helped a crime, that aider and abettor went to prison. Why do they have that there and we don't have it here? And we look and we also see that what's here does that. There. Should kind of warp your mind just a little bit, and not to the point you say, oh, I can't do nothing about it. I don't know how to get that one there. I don't know how to get the CIA outwardly. I know I have some concepts by myself for certain. But I know I can start something locally and maybe a little bit farther away from me and maybe even across some states that starts to reverberate to the point that we do bring back the accountability. You know, you can say no, and then that's where it ends. What you have abandoned, it comes on you. Because it's here, and here it is. And it's really interesting. I forget how I lay my tabs out, but it's interesting how the content that I throw up really comes back to me pretty naturally. I've been looking down, not even looking at my tabs. I make my click. When I looked at it, I've been talking to you, and I look up, well, the next thing they're going to expand. They're expanding it back. I told you, Battlefield America, folks. Nothing is sacred to these psychopaths and warmongers. Pentagon wants to declare more parts of the world as temporary battlefields. Like what they have out there now is not enough. They're going to expand it. Now, where is the authority for temporary battlefields, and who is the Pentagon to ask for it? Is very interestingly lost in all of these discussions. Since when did the Pentagon become the Congress? Notwithstanding that it's abdicated its authority. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking, well, who is the Pentagon to be seeking what's a temporary battlefield that isn't a war on somebody? And when we don't have, as the anarchists before don't understand, the state has nothing to do with your local maintenance of your local roads, not at least directly, not in a direct obligation and duty to do so, notwithstanding any fiscal plunder and fiscal management the state might do in taxation. It's still a local authority, local requirement. No different than the anarchist doesn't even know the system they're rejecting. That causes them to do the work that says they're not anarchists at all, but actually fulfilling what they purportedly think that they're rejecting. Is we looking up and saying that the Pentagon wants to declare, who's the Pentagon to have the right to declare? Who are they to make temporary value? Why are we doing that? The Defense Department now is shown to be the War Department. It really is under the closet and color of the terms and cloud of the term. Pentagon has no rights at all. Certainly not to make temporary battlefields at all or temporary. But you see, they've been doing the battlefields to us the whole time. Battlefield America, as we saw in the NDAA, gave us a big clue of what's really going on. See, we're not rejecting what should be really going on because it's not going on. And so we focus on just rejection instead of taking an active part on how to stop this. But this global war is now the warmongers are the ones principally their whole task is just to make war on things. They want more. And NDA said they went into Battlefield America, and I said that means that's a fiduciary breach to what they meant, and I still been hearing crickets, and I still play crickets, and I'm going to be playing crickets, it seems. I'll be playing cricket as long as those anarchists are calling themselves anarchists pounding asphalt. It's a misunderstanding of I would have to say, a reality. They're out there pounding the asphalt. That's not non-reality. They're doing something with their life, their being, their time. They made a decision, and it was a principled decision, and they took part of the responsibility. I'm hoping it's more than a promotion. They tend to make the talk like it is a promotion. But that's okay. Let's move people past that. Let's get to the foundation of it. I'm encouraged a little bit by the rejection was their own rejection to not doing anything and stop being looked at like they are just people that sit down and destroy stuff. If these people took the proper view, they would stop. They wouldn't even be looking like in the place to be looking like they'd be destroying glass and breaking down stuff and petitioning in the streets. They'd go into the halls of the seat of power and say, why aren't you doing it the way you were supposed to be obligated to? And then they would go beyond that. Not just a statement. You have to have the motive, political power in order to make the change that happens. And you're not making change. You're getting it and restoring it to what it was supposed to be. Why? Because literally we have no better clue. Literally, we have no better clue. And I can tell you, based in land soil disposal and those obligations and duties, we don't have a better position than we can be there. And until we see that, I think that's going to be obscured as well. So this Pentagon wanting temporary wars, we see the skullduggery around it. They justify everything on a lie, it seems. On and on. I don't even know where to begin no more. It's just one lie after a time. Let's get this funny news, fake news. No, these are lies. These are deceits. And I don't want it to go unstated because I don't talk about her too much. I know the gentleman Braun Hines has really been all over this. I want to give him a shout out. Whether or not he listens to the broadcast, I don't know, but he's been all over this issue in Blacklisted News. He writes and authors a paper, a discussion 2 years after the American journalist was killed. Her conspiracy theories on Syria are proven as fact. This was the journalist that was killed right after she exposed the Turkey was helping what the al-Nusra is surrogates. Her name was Serena Shim. Remember? Silence. There's no justice for Serena Shim. This is beyond 2 years, I think. I know Biran has been doing quite a bit, making notices, and used to do the Twitter. I haven't seen him too much on Twitter. I don't know what he's doing. Apparently he's helping write for a couple of different, maybe free thought projects. The journalists that might be there to expose this are killed off by the very same people that are looking to expand and make more temporary battlefields, or allowed to be as such as in the State Department, not the omission to investigate what really happened to Serena, and then knowing about what we know, because if she was correct, that means that the people that are supposed to be investigating and bringing accountability are the ones that are causing it. Is probably the biggest, another proof on top of this that shows that the American government really is no body to be asking for anything right now. Its obligations is to be cleaning its messes up, as we talked last week, that Bashar al-Assad has said, the United States just creates messes. Russia seems to be going around trying to clean everything up. In fact, we're starting to see an interesting problem. I say it's a problem because it's going to escalate certain things. It's not a problem if they succeed. It's going to be a problem if it escalates into direct confrontation. That Russia's moving over now into Libya to clean up the mess made by the United States there, and Egypt. And the reason I think someone's taken notice that Libya was the landing platform for an invasion on Libya was the landing platform eventually for the invasion on Egypt, and this is again to eliminate or to advance the Israeli condition, which I have no, again, there's no international support, and there won't be unless it's by, again, the skullduggery and it'll just be by criminal act that they can be a state. They are not the people for the land that they are claiming. Those people are not the people for the land, owners of used to the land that they are claiming. They are usurpers. They're taking the name. This is an ongoing fraud. And then, as I've seen consistently throughout many, many discussions, there's always 8 to 10% that may be the legitimate ones that are not the ones that are trying to make the claim. As I talk to you about the bloodline and how I realize now how this is supposed to be proved was, again, identified in our land disposal laws in the United States to me. It came, I told you, 6 months ago, a year ago? Finally came to me. No, it can't have been that long ago, maybe 6 months. Finally came to me what the proof is. The proof in how you do land. Soil. Land includes any improvements on the soil, around the soil, or in the soil. So land is a bigger word. The problem my use of that is because the government has attached improvements in land as a taxable thing, and it's not either, but that's what they've done, so I got to be careful on the use of that word, just to let you know. I can use land if we all understand. I'm not talking in the taxation side, because then we have to change the term and talk about real property, which is that held less than fee simple. In other words, everything you use as a profit-making tool from land that was not granted to you, like a corporation buying leasing a property and then deriving benefit from that, profit from that, would be a real estate interest, a real property interest, not a fee simple interest, which we can kick back for those of you doing your patent search. And as I was now educated back in about the fact that allodial title is mentioned, at least in one state I just found out, which I've been avoiding because, well, until you have it in the state, you really can't use it anyway. But in that state, I think it was Minnesota, you can actually use allodial, and that kicks you back. I mean, that really goes back to what it really means. It's not hidden there. But if you don't have it to rely upon, you have to use the other term, and fee simple is what most states have. At least as my investigation. It certainly could be incomplete. It wouldn't change anything, though, except for my expansion of the principle is all. It would be perfectly fine and then have the limit. But Serena Shim was killed in a car accident. A big dump truck or a concrete truck run into her. State Department will not research this, and she was killed like the day after she exposed the connection that Turkey was funding the Al-Qaeda, Al-CIA, and I think also it moves into the FSA. So this is what's going on. There's some real terrible things going on. The good people that are trying to expose it are vilified, and I guess that's just part of the battlefield and part of Battlefield America. When you finally understand, that's what's going on. It's really the World War. We're in the World War now. They've done it so cool, though, that you can't really tell. We got people fixing potholes that think that they're anarchists. It's really fascinating to me. I feel I have to smile a bit. I appreciate, even though that they're wrong in their interpretation, they even had the gumption to go out and fill a pothole. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Now let's turn it to the more proper why, and focus on there and drop that anarchy and say, I want to restore what was ours that you stole. Remember, let me go back to that document, JeffersonMining.com. It's very powerful when I saw this as well. This comes from a court case out of California as well. It's universal across this land regarding the disposal of the public land to the use of the highway. It's a pre-existing claim of possession. I can't say it any more powerfully and clear than that. And if from there, from the very simplest statement, we now have what we have, shows you how occupied we are as a people, how clueless we are to the most basic things. And I got to end that. I just find this fascinating that anarchists call themselves anarchists, and then they're actually supporting the foundation of a government that was theirs and theirs to claim, and as a pre-existing claim that nobody was supposed to interfere with, at least in the usufruct. Again, that everybody can use it. No one has the ownership. We all have the possession. It's a possession in us, folks. You got to get this stuff. Not just an interest. The usufruct is an interest, but it's a pre-existing claim of possession to everyone, these highways. So there's underlying things that are these foundational things that I'll get back to something we were talking about last week. And I've had someone take me to task, and I'll accept the taking to task with the one little thing to add. But let me go back to it. That was the coining of money in the state. First, I want to tell this story and get to that. Arizona's silver and gold bill undermines the Federal Reserve is what they are talking. I don't like that promotion, but here's a report, an Arizona bill that would eliminate state capital gains taxes on gold and silver specie and encourage its use as a currency passed the House today. Final approval of the legislation would help undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. It doesn't have monopoly on money that way. It has it on currency. It takes money as an asset. Remember, we talked about that. Notwithstanding all that, Arizona has eliminated the capital gains taxes on gold. I still can't understand how that is, because that's actually property that meant a man or a woman expended their life. That is not taxable unless you're going to agree that you agree you're all slaves, and that could be. I've showed you about that in the other parts of the law, but it doesn't mean we have to accept it. So there's the interesting thing there. But a gold and silver specie, well, specie is already money. So then I got a challenge, and I thank you for bringing it to my attention the way you did. But it came with a condition that I'm not so sure about, leaning toward the cricket side. And I'll take acceptance of being corrected to a limit. That I said, and I think I have to remember because I don't remember. I didn't go back to look. I found this out. This thing came right before the broadcast. I just had a quick time to read it. That I've been saying that money could be coined in the state. For the sake of the discussion that this Constitution says that no state shall coin money, I'll take a correction on that. But my problem then becomes on the other provision. That here's Section 10, Article 1, Section 10, I think, that no state shall enter into a treaty, alliance, and confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, and then the end here says, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. On its surface, and I would agree, and I wouldn't argue any further for the point if we go to the next section and fulfilling the end of this, because I think it was the Oklahoma law actually spoke to the proper terminology, that if we just take on its face that shows that the state cannot coin money, then what I said last week would be incorrect, that the states could coin money on its face. Now let me go back to Section 8 that actually says that. That the Congress shall have power to, and it goes on, shall have power to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weight and measures. To the limit that the first part says to coin money eliminates the state's ability to coin money, as I said last week, I now have to go on to the next part of Section 10 that I read at the end, to make anything the state, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. The additional statement by the poster on the Blogcaster page was that so no representative would agree to that proposition to coin money in the state, and therefore that he could not or she could not continue to represent or try to get a representation in law to do so, does not step far enough. That to me is quitting, because the extension of this to make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts is exactly what the law last week I read says, that they'll make gold and silver lawful tender for payment in debts. They're just replicating this statement. So to the extent that I will accept correction that a state can't coin money on the first view, I would then commit the poster and anybody to then go to the representative and say, okay, then make it legal tender for a gold and silver coin, a legal tender in payment for debts. If you don't want to go and say the foreign coin that they could be talking about, and I said could, so it's conditional on whether or not you want to push this, in Article 8 would be the coin that was minted as tender in the states for debts. Because the states are supposed to be foreign to the government of Washington. Now, you may not want to split that hair. It certainly needs a whole lot of more study. I said you need to do more study. My point is, and if I misstated the coin money, if that's of harm, okay, I'll take correction. But let's not stop right there that you can't go to a representative and say, okay, then make gold and silver coin tender. And we'll accept that the coin and the money came from Congress, and then you better add something that the Congress shall start printing it and sending it to the states so that we can use it. If you don't want to go that foreign coin for tender based on the standard that's been done in Section 8, if you don't want to do that or don't want to push that, that's fine. It's not a reason to step back and say, I can't go to the representative, they won't fall for it. If you're hooked on me, it could be a misstatement if you go to another analysis. I can get that. I'll stand corrected if you'll step back in and go back to the representative and say, okay, make this state take and accept existing United States coin as tender in payments. And then maybe ask, by the way, how did you have the right to tax the coin in the first place when that represents property to the man and woman that extracted it? That was a violation of a fiduciary breach to make a taxation on man's life and a woman's life. And I know I said that man last week. I hope none of you women took offense when I didn't add that. See how we politically correct I always have to think I'm being. So, I'll accept the correction if you'll go back and say I need a law in my state that says that it's going to make gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. You go back and tell your representatives in your state to do so. And then verify whether or not the government of the United States can start now sending that gold and silver coin to you to use in payment. Now remember, a lot of this payment that came from the governments was actually for taxes. So be very careful on what the limit might actually be here. There might be other obligations and duties. I'm not asking anybody to do that one. That's not even what I talked about. So on its face, I'll stand corrected to the extent that the state still has the right to go make tender silver and gold coin tender for payments of debts. Go back and hit your legislators with that and make it so. And give us all an alternative. I don't know what else to do here, folks. Otherwise we're going down the path and we are looking like we have no options. And then we always have the so-called black market, which is really the countryside. It's the private contract between people for their property. That's partly why I look at this gold thing. And so, if you want to know more about that banking system, I'm asking you to try to find alternatives to. And it's not in Bitcoin. It's not in anything digital. It's going to be in the tangible things that got us here, like the roads, the pre-existing claim of possession. Apparently, we had a right of money, and the only thing about the regulation between the states was that one entity would make the weight and measure and coin it for purposes, and then you'll find out it's for purposes of taxation. If you're not a tax entity, then what do you use? And what right do they have to steal from the miner what he pulled out and gave to society? That's all y'all. So we have a little different thought we could advance, but on the surface, I'll go with the correction. You can't coin money. I'll go that far, but you better start making gold and silver coin tender in payment for debts. Because the banking system that neither economists nor lay people know, which makes the fat cats richer while destroying the real economy, is really kind of what we're talking about here. Removing yourself and your ability to be vulnerable to that. On a Washington blog post, I found a bunch of information, very, very interesting. Goes through who creates the money. Most people assume the money is created by governments, perhaps central banks. In reality, as noted by the Bank of England, Britain's central bank, 97% of all money is in circulation is created by private banks. What he's calling here, banking loans equal creating money out of thin air. Well, in a way it is, but in a way it's not. Because they're making an accounting of something. So let's not go on that, but just understand that they're just making it on the signature of a loan. But how they do that is very fascinating. I received a little bit more because I'm not really studied in a lot of this. I have a basic understanding. It shows me we need to be doing something a lot more substantial than we are, than giving it to someone else to manage and cause usury. But how do private banks create money? We've all been taught that banks first take in deposits and then they loan out those deposits to folks who want to borrow money. That's what they told me. We put our money, they take that pool of money and they lend it back out at interest and they get it back and they make the whole thing work. The Bank of England, the German central bank, have explained the loans are extended before deposits exist and that the loans create deposits. So your signature on a loan approved that you can repay this supposed loan creates the deposit from which they make the account to say you owe the money, which they charge usury interest, and also the way they've changed the terms of what this is within the banking structure, which legal allows. So it's not illegal. You and I do it. It's a big crime, but they do it. The way they've changed the terms, they don't even have to pull this money they fabricated. It's in a deposit account, and they don't have to pull it out of that account either. And so I won't read more. The fascinating link, those of you that have an insight may get more out of it. Maybe if you have too much, you won't get nothing out of it. But it confirmed again more things that I did know, but points out some more nuances that I didn't actually know. Beyond the public, creates money. The banks create money out of thin air. There's a mechanism by how that gets done that I think is valuable to understand. And in this link, there's a whole lot of interesting little segments of videos that a guy did in a seminar, and I don't have his name real fast here. Anyway, you'll find the link. If you're interested, you'll get to the link. I go right through it, and they're you don't have to listen to the whole lecture if you don't want to. Little snippets of the video on point of what the text says, so you can focus on what they're conversing with and not get lost. I found that valuable to me, that I want to advance it to you. But this is how they've taken us out of the loop and control what we do, and they do it on a mass fictions and fraud that they've essentially legitimized. And I look down and see Juan and Taco, and just like I said, I just have a line. If I look down at the right time, I'll see somebody. He says fractional reserve banking. You'll read in this how they're able to. That's partly how the mechanism works, that they can make these deposits, and then, like as I told you, they can make loans or bonds on that and all kinds of stuff. And so they can do it a number of times, how they make the terminology work to be able to do that. So that was the insight, that this is how you're seeing this gentleman is explaining, and if I apologize to him for not having his name. I don't see it real quick. Again, I don't. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. You'll get it. If you're interested, you get to see how the bankers have done this to us. And this is why we need to just get out. If you're not part of it and can't be part of it, however it's done, if the state can't coin money, then darn it, make sure it's legal tender and go get Congress to coin that money. Don't make the excuse that you can't continue going to your representative. And why not? Maybe we need to make an amendment to something. I don't know. It'd probably be a long-lost job there, but why just throw up, this is what we do. Oh, you didn't say it right, I'm going to give up. That's all. That's my criticism of the poster, though I do absolutely appreciate double-checking what I've said and bringing it to my attention. As I said, I have no problem with being corrected. But let's not, first of all, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then let's not just give up because I may have misspoken. If I did, I don't know. I have two other ideas about how again, that foreign coin really pops in my mind just strong. And I don't know, I'd have to go back and do the research on that. I know what they think they'll tell you they're talking about, but that's not how the Constitution actually works, what they tell you in the legal. And so there's a whole thing that came up about that, about another state now is going to hopefully they'll complete the passing of the bill that allows gold and silver coin to be legal tender for payment of debts. And we can start to slowly extract ourselves. As I told you last week, the jobs report was the excuse they were going to use to raise the interest rates. Boy, it came just like the next day. I said on the Twitter, boy, that was fast. U.S. raises, didn't say the Fed, U.S. raises benchmark interest rate by 0.25%. So here it's going to come back up now, folks. They use that, and they say it right in this story. They use that jobs report. So that's pretty easy to predict. This is how we're seeing they start controlling it. They're going to steal more wealth from you if you stay in that system. It's that obvious, that clear. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how I could say the words wrong there to make a change of substantial change to the fact of all this. That we have to take this by the horns and drive it where we need it, not let them let us go over and us being led over as we sit in the back of the wagon. Let them drive it over the edge of the stinking abyss and into it. We can be in that swamp that they claim that they're draining by filling it up with turds. I mean, I can't imagine the people, why, no statement that Goldman sucks, employees or past employees are sitting in the administration, 3 of them? Come on, folks. Get out of her, my people, rings real loud right there. But out to where? We can't get out into something we think is anarchy. We're anarchists too. But you need to go right where those anarchists were. Not because they were anarchists, because in their stupor about how this thing really works, they actually did the right thing. Why? Because your spirit will drive you to do the right thing if you just step up and do something. Venezuela has bred this government reaction, folks, to things, how things work. And this is Venezuela to me is what we're going to be watching for all the people that think they're in developed nations as the austerity of the agendas come down on us. Venezuela has a bread shortage. The government has decided bankers are the problem. Fascinating response. The government utilized the fact that the money, the wheat, flour, which there's not enough of, the government's not buying enough, but it's like potholes. They don't buy enough to fix everything, but they bought enough, and then they made a law that says you have to make 70% of this has to go to a certain type of bread, and then the law says the rest can be made into pastries, but no more. The government came in and said that extra, there's more being made to pastries than to bread. And so they're closing the bakeries that are feeding the people. And they're already in a shortage condition, is how government does things when you're pressed to. And they have the army to make it happen. And the people don't respond quite right or timely. See, the people are so far behind, and now they're hungry. You're not going to go far on an empty stomach. Roman army knew about that. So we can sit here and watch this thing come on us. The Banana Republic imposed through the battlefield America, austerity and the fist and the Fed fraud and the IMF and all, and the Agenda 2030 implementation till 2030, causing all this imposition and heartache on all these people while they shut down Venezuela's money. Because it's all controlled. And the people aren't integrated enough to rally up and do it for themselves. This is what happens. I suppose these anarchists out there, if the government had a rule, if they could make a rule, this is how the point, I'm telling you, it's so different in the United States. The government could make a rule that you couldn't do that. If they could be picked up and pulled off. The road workers would be pulled off even though you got potholes. That's how this would work in places like the socialist countries that don't have land law as a pre-existing right of possession to the people. Now, I suppose the government's doing all it can as it understands how it's going on. It can do whatever it thinks. I mean, there's only a couple people that are making these decisions, but then everyone's life is dependent on these 2 people that think they're doing the best thing for the people and hurting them. And you have no remedy. This is our problem. There's no remedy for this stuff. So, internationally, this agenda I keep talking about that we're being vulnerable to, how they bring the austerity is how they control the bucks in this system, and what influence that has, and where they can cause trouble for people that might have money that think they're investing in all this Wall Street stuff. This little story came up to just focus us on the problem of the global interaction that causes trouble in our lives, and how much money, if you can call it that, is involved in keeping that machine oiled to continue to interfere with your life and eventually parasitically feed off of you. Remember, asphalt comes from a petroleum product, okay? So it still takes all that infrastructure. You still got to do all the infrastructure to make asphalt. And you got to do a lot of mining. You see this rock, you've got to hit the rock, and you got to do all kinds of stuff. That is all considered to be a footprint that's violative of nature. That we see this little statement, and we're going to get over into the climate. See, to me, it's no different. You can call it whatever title. It's all a tool to destroy you. Little-known Financial Stability Board, in quotes, Financial Stability Board, has huge climate deceit. Very interesting. I didn't know this, but it makes sense. And then you see the mechanics of how they take fiscal funding organizations that are paid to tear you down and interfere with the things that you need in your life. You don't see it yourself. They don't attack you. They attack those that are out there in the world producing it for you. So understand how it's invisible to you that way as well. A powerful international organization, an international organization affects you locally, folks. This is how this all works. The Financial Stability Board includes a task force. I already can tell you this is consensus and alternative dispute resolution felony. Task forces are always set up to figure out how to defeat the people that need what they're going to control. The task force is helping to coordinate numerous attacks. They haven't called Jefferson Mining District to coordinate, I can tell you. To coordinate numerous attacks on financial, investing, insurance, and other firms and their clients in the name of preventing dangerous man-made climate change. Remember, it was Michael Mann-made climate change, not man or woman. So this is another fraud, and climate change is a fraud, and we've been through all that. But this shows you sustainable development is in your face by constricting and restricting and controlling those that would produce what you need or make it more expensive for you to get. That there's one little group, a very large group actually monetarily, that can do this, that's international. It's outside of your reach. By locking up centuries of fossil fuel reserves, the FSB army of agitators hope to benefit immensely at the expense of ordinary people everywhere. That's what I just was telling you. There it is in the first one. Billions, $93 billion on a $15 renewable, sustainable energy projects of low carbon. This is all part of it. Another aspect for those of you doing this research or involved or engaged, understanding it. To me, it's just another part of the cogs that I think we can shear the gears with here if you just have an understanding of how this is all working. I bring it up only to show you that there's a lot of players already in place, big money involved to go against you. And I've told you it doesn't take a lot of money for us. We just start knowing where we have to do it, and the decisions come down locally, actually. And so it is that educated masses. And then there's some subtle structural changes. Like I say, some states don't have a county representation in their senates. Interestingly, those are bills that are coming through too to allow your county to have a say against any one political party taking control. That your representatives in their Senate are actually the counties and they're representatives of the county things of county concern, which are actually the 10th Amendment, which trumps not the president, but this actual verb trumps everything that can be done through this agenda, which is non-constitutional. It's consensus policy based. And consensus really being stakeholders that are agreeing to steal your lunch. What was that? The democracy they show was three characters, two which are wolves, one being a sheep deciding on what's for dinner. That's what these people do. Only there are no sheeps in this discussion. They're all wolves, and the rest of you all are dinner. Now, within the context of all this international imposition, and you see the climate change, to me that's just this sustainable development. It's just one aspect. The other thing going on underneath this is it's the environment, one of the legs of the stool. And lots of thoughts. Okay, words just flash. This is one leg of the stool, the environment, which doesn't really have the definition that you think it does. You think it's the birds and bunnies. It's not actual. In fact, somebody wrote an email, a Twitter, and had an article, an opinion, and I went through it, and it was a Twitter of an article being supported by people that are supposedly alternative minded, clear thinking, and I looked at the report, and it was about supporting the NGOs and nonprofits in order to tear down dams and do other environmental things, and all the words in the report were accurate as far as the facts being stated. But as I asked the author, I said, what if your facts are based on a false premise, and that the claims that you make cause a wrong perception and can cause crimes to be committed? Now, that's become a dead-end conversation where she's now telling me she doesn't understand because she wouldn't answer these simple things. They're quite deep, but they're simple. The answer to the false premise is, well, it would change it, wouldn't it? You don't have to. It's not an intellectual battle I'm doing here. If your facts are based on a false premise, they can be shown to be true, but they're based on a false premise, so they're therefore you can't support yourself with them. And I looked at her supporting story, which was false news, deceit. I already know she doesn't understand. She either does and is an open deceiver, or she doesn't really know, like the anarchists, misinterpreting what she's doing and making a statement. This is reduced down to her wanting to be paying voluntary tax and would want to have her money, like line item, given to these nonprofits to go tear down dams and do other things. To me, that looked like the no dapple thing, and the Indians being used as stakeholders, stalking horses. Actually, stalking horses by the stakeholder. And that she's then also willing, doesn't even understand the tax scheme in this country. She's a writer, but doesn't understand the tax scheme, talking about voluntary tax. Doesn't understand she's then agreeing to the tax, which, for a way they're imposing it on people, is a theft, although it's not a theft generally, as properly applied. This is another thing, another meme that goes on through the Twitter sphere that doesn't get me a lot of followers, and they unlink really quickly. It's pretty fascinating. That she was supporting a tax and that she wanted her money to go to NGOs to destroy dams, which it's a crime to do that, actually. It's a violation of the treaties. But she also didn't understand that she's engaging the very processes I'm talking to you about that diminishes you through this financial bank and the climate change and the consensus thing and the alternative dispute resolution. All of that's in all of this stuff. And here we have the beginning of an end if we don't stop it here, folks. This came through us. We now understand it as nature's trust. It's the expansion of the public trust doctrine, which is supposed to be limited to navigable rivers, that for miners was just expanded in a Reinhardt case in California to include the entire state of California now. There is no limitation, although there's supposed to be. Professor Mary Woods of the University of Oregon proposed this thing called the nature's trust, where everything in nature would have a trust put on it, and a trustee. Now we're into trust law. Folks, they've been listening to me, okay? Because there was nobody talking about this stuff. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but they understand about this trust law. I expounded out. That's what the relationships of the government are to you. It's a trust. It's not a sovereign. So they're trying to expand this thing from the foundational laws into what they can use that they know is powerful. And they try to make nature to have a trust. Now, remember we were talking about baboons, and we were talking about animals getting rights. And I told you that the monkey, the chimpanzee in Argentina, was coming up into the banana republic called the United States of America, and it's going to be asking for its EBT card. It's going to be going down to the alcohol store and buying alcohol and pimping the women on the street. And it'll have full rights to do so. Because that's what us animals do, right? Well, it's now moving over quickly. As they get this, a global expanse of a consensus. Wanganui River to gain legal personhood. In the world first, a New Zealand river will be recognized as a person. What they do is they establish a conservation trust around this, and it becomes a person with legal rights. It's all fabricated, all a fiction. They used a local people as a stalking horse in order to get this through, and talking through how the Indians there, the natives, the indigenous, I should say, the indigenous, would refer to the river in their belief system. To advance that into a legal right, to be advocated by conservationists, and they'll be given a lot of money to do this, that now inanimate objects, not even animated animal, but inanimate objects, I guess the river's a live thing, I understand that. And it's not like I'm not believing in the river needs to be protected, as I pointed out through numerous broadcasts, how the so-called water protectors were not. That the other author was also saying that development in the land man's development of land is some sort of a crime. Totally denying the law at all. Totally denying the fact that where man develops, he actually develops the nature. We find that in things like the Klamath River system, where or to make the desert go green, they made a dam. The desert of which the runoff during the year has no salmon of it in there. When you put the dam in, now you have salmon up to the dam and above it because you have a fish ladder. That these green groups want to rip it down because that river has a personhood with rights. Is coming to an area next to you pretty soon, I suppose. That we now have rivers that have legal rights. So let's get back to the point. They start melding you and nature together, when in fact there's a difference between nature and mankind and what mankind does in the nature and for himself. That's in NEPA. I'm sure this writer was totally oblivious to NEPA and its standard. It seemed completely absent in her awareness. It's certainly to come back, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you repeat it? Wants me to contact some blank form on an internet. Like, what's that going to do? How am I going to make you understand and asking the questions again that you don't want to answer? Completely oblivious to these processes that are infringing upon you, infringing on your ability to be a producer, a develop, and infringing on those that are consumers of the production in order to have them cheap and efficiently done and more clean than actually can be done by legislation. Because what you do is your legislation, you start saying that, oh, we're going to base it on science. That was the other thing she talked about, best science. Well, folks, I told you that science is conservation science. It's not science at all. It's an advocacy to promote the agenda. The science explains to us a whole lot different. In fact, usually 180 degrees. Like there is a sun. Yes, cows do help forests with grow and maintain their health. Miners do cause animals to come to them when they're, not all, I mean, I'm sure that there's some miners that could care less, but those of us that know, we attend to try and make our work conducive to the environment. I like watching the deer and the birds and the bugs, maybe not the ants and the flies, but and the mosquitoes, but it doesn't matter. The trees growing. We take a big pain to go around things where we can, or to work out how we're going to make it least impactful and on small scale already, that we are vilified because of this agenda that was coming on to bring an issue that doesn't exist, the fraud of an issue that doesn't exist, in order to give you a belief there's a harm that they have the solution to. Not you, the one that's going to be affected, but they. That's the solutions network. All right, that's the very network this other writer is, I'm sure, oblivious to, or she knows that she either is oblivious and clueless, and her whole writing is just has no foundation to it, or she's deceptive, straight up, aiding and abetting the crime. That there is a way to look at this. It's just not the way of you don't look at it through the eyes of an insane religious fanatic. And I don't mean to insult all the religious fanatics, but you really got to get a handle here, folks. Those of you that are fanatics, you've kind of gone over too far. And what things in moderation, remember. And so you better understand you have to have the foundation to come from somewhere. Your opinion means nothing. And I see lots of this opinion. And where I would condemn the UN, I want to mention this next report. Who are the propagators of all this nonsense? The equalizing of all poverty in the world, calling it prosperity, shared wealth. You're sharing it with this river, and yet you can't access it for the things that it can produce, and you can't develop it so that it works better. Is this insanity? The UN is the prime promoter, and I'm not promoting it here. I want to point out something, though. I'm noticing, very interestingly to me at least, that I think there's a fracture happening in this organization. And if it was there before, maybe I didn't understand it or didn't notice it, but I'm starting to see something now. And here's a little bit of the epitome of that, all right in here, where I would denounce anything the UN is doing. Totally, I mean, it's just pushing what the Zio British American agenda wanted. UN experts, I know what I say about experts say, but this is the schism I think I see going on. U.S. experts denounce the myth of pesticides are necessary to feed the world. Now, a UN expert is denouncing the myth that pesticides are necessary to feed the world. On its surface, is not such a a wrongful statement. But coming from an organization that really is the purveyor of death and the aider and abetter of death, this appears to be a schism now developing. I've seen a couple more stories where the UN is actually coming out to say, hey, these people are now stepping up to say, we have a problem in these areas. It's not what's been said. Report warns of catastrophic consequences and blames manufacturers for systematic denials of harm and unethical marketing tactics. I guess I find this is an interesting notice coming from an abomination. I don't mean Obama, the unqualified one. I don't mean him. The idea that pesticides are essential to feed a fast-growing global population is a myth, according to the UN food and pollution experts. A new report, which is linked, I'll have a link in the blogcast, being presented to the UN Human Rights Council on Wednesday, is severely critical of the global corporations that manufacture pesticides, accusing them of systematic denial of harms, aggressive, unethical marketing tactics, and heavy lobbying of governments, which has, quote, obstructed reforms and paralyzed global pesticide restrictions. Now, there's a political play going on here. It's again like getting them to fight amongst themselves. I just want to point out, there's a discussion that these pesticides aren't all what they're cracked up to be. Again, we've known this, but this is now a group that I would have denounced to say they're seemingly on the side of being more open about what harm they've been peddling and allowing. And at some point, what are they going to do? You just watch the Syria war crimes happening left and right, and that body does nothing. Allows it to continue. We'll just watch it. Everyone's just watching the crime. Makes them all accessories anyway. And so the thing I can see up here is that they're trying to make themselves, the UN is making itself the regulating body. I can see that. The fact that they're telling us that this myth of pesticides. Now remember, Monsanto's glyphosate Roundup is not a pesticide. That's a different mechanism, but it ends up being chemicals. That this is coming out to warn us is I thought powerful, and I'm seeing, notwithstanding the centralization of the regulatory control that they probably are pushing for politically, the notice to us is we have some serious problems with what we're allowing. And for the United States, if we haven't seen that like Goldman Sachs being in the cabinet or the revolving door in agencies to industry, if we haven't noticed that as being one of our main problems and not fixing, well, we have our own. We don't have to go to the UN at all, but here we have it. Why would they be allowed to misrepresent? Is the same problem that the Pentagon is saying, we want to have more territory to go bomb because that's just what we do, and it's okay because we get to now declare war wherever we want. As that report comes out, alarming levels of now glyphosate, not a pesticide but a descaler, found alarming levels of glyphosate contamination found in a popular American food. Well, American food I think is more American feed if we look very carefully. Now that food is the problem. The food is probably as contaminated. Glyphosate, the world's most widely used herbicide linked to Monsanto's Roundup-ready genetically engineered crops, has been found at alarming levels in a wide range of best-selling foods across the United States. Democracy Now! Said, and the Detox Project announced Monday. I won't read more. They go through all their stuff. The point is that we've been reported behind the Woodshed that this was the fact on other reports. We have to be more and more cognizant of what it's going on to do. Last week we produced the EPA toxicologist's internal letter being used as a suit against Monsanto, saying that all these glyphosate has a power because of its chelating action and other things to cause us harm, and it wasn't supposed to be so much in our food, and it was said originally that it wasn't supposed to be persistent, and now the surprise 10 years later it is consistent with the UN report. Whatever the political is there, and I just say let's look at the political side, but take the notice as certain that that's what's going on. They're just doing it to see they raised the issue, and now they're going to try and control it. They are the stakeholder here going to try and get that. Now, at some level, anybody getting a control of that may not be a bad thing, but it's not consistent either, and this is my other problem with how we should be doing things here that aren't recognized, because they're making everybody equal in their being controlled globally by governance and not government through these things, and then centrally you're not gonna have the life that you thought you had. Not you, your little ones, your up and comings. Monsanto attempt to block glyphosate from California cancer list tossed by judge. Another interesting read on. I read for these to see what the judge said. How did they go about? What was the premise, and kind of get an idea how you approach these problems when you if you're to go to court, or even with an agency, or even a local decision-making bureaucrat. You start using these standards, and all of a sudden your life becomes a lot more clear and less cluttered, because you start showing the deceit that's being used by these people who think they can. Up until now, they've been getting away with it. A California state court has dismissed a legal challenge by a multinational agribusiness, again internationalists, a firm of Monsanto that seeks to bar the state from adding glyphosate, the lead ingredient in the company's Roundup herbicide, to a list of cancer-causing chemicals. Now, I won't read more. You can go get the story. The point is that they didn't have a good standing to get this thing tossed on a very simple bill that had been in in California. Maybe you need to look at that. Maybe you need to look at how that got in and how to do it for yourself. The other thing I want to remind you of, this statement does not state, it only speaks to glyphosate and not the so-called inert chemicals that are in there that are thousands of times more harmful. Remember that one. That's always sitting there silent in this story. It's not just the Roundup. It's its ingredients are just dastardly. Now, and I don't know if I have much time to do this. I'll go a couple more. Some things that we can do for ourselves instead of relying, while they're destroying and taking minerals from us and trying to defend themselves against it. Fibrocysts and iodine connection. I think if I remember right, a lot of women have problems with this. Don't have any numbers. I just have an awareness, I suppose. I'll just say it that way. Today, thyroid disease is epidemic. Not pandemic, see here. This is a real thing. 8%, I think it says 80% of thyroid disease is experienced by women, with at least 50% cases going undiagnosed. 84% of women with thyroid disease have fibrocystic breasts. Is there a connection between the low thyroid function and fibrocysts? Well, with the time remaining, folks, iodine. Natural stuff. You just need, go back and find what Mother Nature has. One more story about that. Marijuana may be more effective than Adderall at treating ADHD while treating numerous other ailments. I won't even have to read it. This is one of those evidences. It's those of you writing your letter to the DEA and whatever government agency is trying to, and the hemp people and the foods, folks. This is evidence that you should be using in your letters. I don't know why. And are you writing them? Are you doing something for yourself? Really? We're not helpless? It's not that hard. I know I talk fast. Maybe you do lots of principles. I'm not unavailable, though. markonthebeast.yahoo.com. I mean, I can't take on your issue. I can just guide you. I just don't have I don't have that much of a life. But I can probably guide you and hopefully help you out. Thank you for the poster on the question of the coining the money in the state. I'll accept that as long as you go back and go ahead and get them to make coin and gold coin and silver coin payment for a tender payment. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope something I said was helpful or can be helpful or be used to advance it. Thank you to Grimner, RealLibertyMedia.com, for all you do, Grimner, and freedomsnetwork.com. I hope anybody can donate. Help Bo Diddy, please, donating for those servers. He's already paid. Thank you for the social network. I hope we start to use it in earnest. To UCY.TV, Jules, thank you very much for what you do and that you carry the broadcast and simulcast and any terrestrial broadcasters. I appreciate all that you broadcast out. Let me know who you are. If you don't want to be, just let me know, even if you don't want me to call you out. That's fine. And I'll be here next week, tech diffs or nature willing.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
That's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.
This is JJ Up Against the Wall, and you're listening